Hi everyone, we're going to do lessons like this for the foreseeable future. So bear with me because I'm trying out some new technology so that I can try and make sure that these lessons are better for you. We're entering the geometry portion, so what we're going to do next class is going to build off of this. So just make sure that you are covering this material before we get on to what we're doing next class. So we're going to talk about midpoint and distance today. Most of you have dealt with midpoints before. If you've taken a geometry class, it is a point, it has to be on a line segment. A line segment starts and stops, kind of like this diagram that you see before you. It starts at A, stops at B, or vice versa. And it is a point that happens to divide that line segment into two equal parts. Another word for it is the halfway point. So M is halfway between A and B. And the reason why I know this is because this mark and this mark right here show me that AM and MB are equal to each other or congruent to each other, meaning that they're the same length, they're the same distance, so M is a midpoint. Okay, so I'm going to, oh my gosh, please don't laugh at me with how horrible this is going to be, but I'm trying this new writing technology here, so here we go. Okay, I want to, if I want to find the midpoint between -1, 8, and 5, 2, I need to figure out what my distance is, what my length is, vertical, right? So I want to know what this is, and then horizontal. So if you draw this, hopefully your triangles look significantly better than mine. And then we want to figure out what this measures, what this side measures, and what that side measures, because we can count it. So this side measures 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm going to write 6. And let's measure what the horizontal side measures. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This side also measures 6. So we're going to write 6. Okay. I want the midpoint. Remember that the midpoint is halfway between. 6 divided by 2, right? Because of midpoint happens to equal 3. So what I am going to do is I am going to change my pen color. And I want to show, how this can be done halfway through. So half of 6 is 3. So instead of going down 6 over 6, I'm going to go down 3. Let's see, here we go. Down 1, 2, 3, and go over 1, 2, 3. And I should be able to do that again. Down 1, 2, 3, over 1, 2, 3. So I know that this is really ugly because I got to get good at this pen. This is 3, just like this is 3, right? And this piece right here is also 3. It's not writing. And this piece right here is also equal to 3. So I should be able to do this, and what that is showing me is that this point right here, okay, that point right there happens to be my midpoint. So I'm going to call it M, just so that I know that that's a midpoint. So now I can start from the origin, and I'm going to count over and up to see what the coordinates of M are. I'm going to count over 1, 2, and I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks like the coordinates are 2 because I went over 2 first, and then I went up 5. So the midpoint, oh my God, this is so ugly. The midpoint is 2, 5 if I were to do it that way. I'm going to try to do the same thing when it comes to finding the midpoint between A and B. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to, I could do the vertical, right? So I could go up and over. I don't know what's worse, what I did before or what I did there. So I'm going to go up and over, right? Let's see if we can try this, up and over, so that I make my triangle. And then I want to count how much I went up and how much I went over. So up, I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 5. And over, I went 1, 2, 3. So this going over is 3. Now this one's going to be a little bit more complicated, okay? Because if I want the halfway point, 5 divided by 2 is what? This is kind of weird, right? This is 2.5. 2.5. I'm going to try this way. 2.5. And then 3 divided by 2 is actually 1.5. So when I do what I did here, which is when I try to divide in half, I want to try, instead of going up 5 and over 3, I'm going to go up 2.5, and I'm going to go over 1.5. So I'm going to try and do this in another color. Let's do red. Okay, so I'm going to go up 1, 2, and then 2.5 is about here. And then I'm going to go over 1, 1.5. So it looks like around here. And I'm going to do the same, see if I wind up at B. Go up 0.5, go up 1.5, go up 2.5, and then go over 0.5, 1.5. So it worked out. It took me, I should be able to do this twice if I've got the midpoint correctly. So this right here happens to be the midpoint. That is going to be a little bit tricky in order for us to figure out. So starting from the origin, it looks like I go to the left and then I go down. It looks like I go to the left 1/2 and I go down 1/2. So the coordinates of my midpoint look like they're 0.5, 0.5. Oh. And they both happen to be negative because I went in the negative direction. So that's one way that I could find the midpoint. Another way that I could find the midpoint, and a lot of you learned it this way, is by using the midpoint formula. So you have to have 2 points. You're going to label one point x1, y1, the other point x2, y2, and then here's your midpoint formula. The bad thing is if you don't remember this formula and it's not given to you, you won't be able to find the midpoint. So we're going to add the 2x coordinates and then divide by 2, and then add the 2y coordinates and divide by 2, and that should give us our midpoint. So let's actually double check. If you're not feeling, hopefully your drawing is better than mine, but if you're not feeling these drawings, right? So how do we find the midpoint? So the first thing that you want to do is you want to label, this pen is not working. You want to label one point x1, y1, and you want to label the other point x2, y2. Okay, and then the very next thing that you want to do is use your formula. So in using the formula, I'm going to add my x's together. So I'm going to do negative, I'm going to do x1 plus y1, plus x2, right, which happens to be 5, divided by 2. Okay, again, double check us what the formula says. X1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So I'm going to do, my y coordinate is my y's, so 8 is y1 plus y2 is 2. I'm going to divide by 2. Okay, so now let's do this math. Negative 1 plus 5 is 4. So I have 4 divided by 2. And then 8 plus 2 is 10. So I have 10 divided by 2. And then this is some pretty simple math, right? 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And we have the same exact thing that we got when we drew it out. So you can do it both ways. You can figure out how to do it one way. Now I'm going to check this one out. Okay, remember this one that gave us like weird coordinates. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I need the coordinates for A first. So I'm starting from the origin. I'm going to go over 2 and then down 3. So it looks like A has coordinates -2, -3. Okay, and then it looks like B, I go from the origin, I go over 1 and then up 2. So B has coordinates 1, 2. And I'm going to do the same thing. This is x, this is y, this is x, this is y. So to find the midpoint, I'm going to add my x's together. -2 plus 1 divided by 2. And then I'm going to add my y's together. So I'm going to do -3 plus 2 and then divide by 2. Okay, here's where it gets tricky. -2 plus 1 is actually -1. divide by 2, right? And then -3 plus 2 is also -1. And guys, remember that -1/2 is the same as -0.5. So it looks like we got the same exact thing as we did when we counted. So whichever one makes most sense, you could have left it -1/2, you could have left it -0.5. This would happen to be the midpoint of A to B. Okay, so that concludes the first part of our lesson. Here is the midpoint formula. And then remember that you could also draw. You can make sure that when you're trying to find the distance, you go make your triangle and then count halfway through in either direction, or that you use your formula. We're going to continue with part 2, which is working with the distance formula.